Okay, we're in section 10. This is on the polynomial division. And we kind of separate the two classes. We did this in the lecture portion where we have a monomial divisor. That's a very simple division. We actually call it a simple division. And then we have a binomial divisor or larger, and that's going to be what's known as a long division. Right, we'll go through the examples. I'm hoping as we go through the examples, it illustrates what you need to be able to do both in the homework and on exams. Nothing will go beyond this level. All right, so let's take a look. I'm going to switch over and give me a second to do so. And yes, I understand that division for some students can be quite difficult. Okay, we're going to do the examples now. Certainly, when I do the examples, I'm going to say I'll talk about what we need to do. And this one says, divide. So if I were looking at this problem over here, and I'm not saying there's only one way to do a problem, but I'm looking at this thing. What do I notice right from the get-go? That this thing is a monomial divisor. There's only one term in the bottom. So what I'm going to do is just write it. The two top terms are 8x squared, y squared. I'll divide that by 8xy minus the second term is 24xy over 8xy. And what do I want to do? Reduce each of those terms, right? So let's go talk about one step at a time. Well, 8 goes into 8 once. That's pretty easy. One factor of x cancels off and one factor of y cancels off. So we left off with xy. We'll check it in the key later. Minus, let's do the next guy. Well, 8 goes into 8 once, goes into 24 3 times. Now, what else do I notice? One factor of x cancels, one factor of y cancels. There's no variables left. So what am I left off with? Just a number 3. All right, I want to emphasize, I need to check this with my key. Where's the key? It's on the next page. What should the key read? xy minus 3. And I'm seeing that right here. Okay, let's do the next question. And again, if you can do this without doing any work, I have no objection. What I'm trying to encourage is, what is the work? So the work is going to be, it's a monomial divisor. What I need to do is divide each term on top by that monomial divisor. And I do it one term at a time. So what do you get? 9x squared y is going to be divided by 3xy, simple reduction problem, plus 6xy over 3xy minus 3xy squared over 3xy. By the way, you're going to make mistakes, and that's why we give you a K. Hopefully you're not making too many mistakes, and you can match the answers that we're giving you. So 9 divided by 3 is 3. That was pretty simple. One factor of x cancels. I'm doing the first term, by the way. That's x, and the y's would cancel. What do you get next? 6 divided by 3 is 2. The x cancels, the y cancels. Next term, the 3 divided by 3 is 1. X divided by x is 1. Now you have 2 factors of y on top, 1 on bottom. There's 1 factor of y left over. That's my answer. Let's check it. Oops, sorry about that. We're doing good. All right, now this one over here, I want to point out, it says divided. Although I don't like this symbol is used often. I'm going to rewrite the problem though, and typically this should be written this way over here. Now you should realize the divisor is not a monomial. So you would actually be making your life a nightmare by dividing this into 3 separate problems and doing the division. It would be a nightmare. We're going to do one long division. So let's write this down. What's long division going to look like? X minus 3 is going to be divided into x squared minus x minus 6. I know this is difficult. And certainly when I say that, my encouragement is if you give up without trying, that is never going to work. All right, I'm going to say you should be able to do the problem that we're presenting to you. What we do is we look at this, which is x, and we need to find a multiple of x that would match this identically. And what is that multiple? It would just be x. You're to use a distributive property of multiplication now. And what would you get? X squared minus 3x. Now, most students can do that pretty quickly. It's the next step they screw up on. All right. Now, if you remember back to grade school, they would say, oh, you're to subtract now, and they would actually write a subtraction symbol in. Right. There's nothing wrong with doing that. If that works for you, that's fine. If you did that, what would you get? X squared minus x squared. There are no x squareds. Minus x minus a minus 3x would give you 2x. Now, if you can do that, doing what I just did there, that's good news. But I'm going to claim a lot of students can't do that. So I want to get my eraser out. And I'm going to talk about another way that students do it. All right, so I'm going to erase this over here. And erase this over here. What some students need to do, though, and again, you decide what works for you. Like I just put the parentheses in there and did a subtraction, which is the way you did in grade school. What some students do, though, is they change the signs and combine. And if you did that, what would you get? You still get 2x. All right. By the way, I like neither of those two things I presented to you. I just simply say, I'm going to subtract, and I subtract. That's what I do. All right, what do you do now? Drop a place down. All right, what are you going to do now? Well, you're going to look at this. What times this would match this identically? Well, it's got to be plus 2. I'll write that down for you. And what's 2 times x? 2x. What's 2 times minus 3? Minus 6. All right, let me remind you what you did in grade school. Teacher said subtract. If you did that, what would you get? You would get 0. If that works for you, good for you. If that's not working for you, I want to go through another method. I'm going to erase what I just put down over here. What some teachers tell you to do is change, whoops, sorry, let me go back to red ink. Change the signs and combine. Well, 2x minus 2x is nothing, and minus 6 plus 6 is nothing. And what does this mean? The remainder. Well, that's good. What's my answer? This. Can I check it? Yes. I want to point out what the check would look like. This is also something you did in grade school. You checked your long division by multiplying. Repeat what you did in grade school. You took this, there was a number in grade school, times this. And after you do that, it should give you this back. Let's write that down. This should give me back x squared minus x minus 6. What does this give you? X squared plus 2x minus 3x minus 6. X squared minus x minus 6. Certainly works. All right, not bad. Let's go to the next one. You're going to get better at time, but you have to try. That's so important. You start to try. Let's do number 4, and I'll write it down for you. And it's a long division problem. And I want to point out why it's long division. We're dividing by not a monomial, but a binomial. And let's write that down for you. So 3x minus 5 is being divided into 6x squared minus x minus 15. I want to emphasize what we're doing over here. We're looking at this, which is 3x. We're saying what times 3x would give you 2x squared. Well, that's relatively simple. And I have to be honest with you, they generally are. Now, we could make them nightmarish where the numbers are really difficult. And they're never nightmarish. I want to be honest with you. So what do you have here? 2x. Let's multiply that. What do you get? What's 2x times 3x? 6x squared. What's 2x times minus 5? Minus 10x. Now, I'll be honest with you, what I would do here is I would just simply say I'm going to subtract. And if I were just going to subtract, I would say it looks pretty easy for me. It's just 9x. But if you're looking at saying, where did that 9x come from? You can't do that then. You've got to do something else. So I'm going to erase my 9x, and I'll walk you through it. I'm going to erase it over here. One thing you could do is write down that you're actually going to subtract that. And if that's working for you, that's fine to write that down. And what would you get over there? You still get 9x. All right. Now, if that's not working for you, let's talk about another way of doing it. I'm going to erase this business over here. Don't be discouraged. I'm going to change the signs and combine. For some students that works, but I have to be honest with you, no matter what you're doing, it's always going to be 9x. Now again, that might take a lot of effort on your end. It's effort that's worthwhile. Let's write this up, minus 15. All right, so what are you going to do now? What times this, which is 3x, would match this identically? Well, that would be 3, plus 3, sorry. What do you get? 9x minus 15. Now, I got to be honest with you. If I were to subtract that, I would just get 0 very quickly. Other students have to write this down. They're still going to get 0 very quickly. Other students, and again, we like to give you choice, have to change the signs and combine, and you're still going to get 0. All right, so what do I get? I get an answer, which is 2x plus 3. I want to claim, though, if you just want to check it this way by looking at this answer and this answer, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're on the exam, what I would suggest you do, just to make sure you're right, is do 3x, I'll write this down for you, times 2x plus 3. You need practice anyway. This gives me 6x squared plus 9x minus 10x minus 15. And this gives me 6x squared minus x minus 15. Make sure that this is what it's supposed to be, 6x squared minus x minus 15. All right. But again, you may decide, no, I just want to look at the answer and see how I did. Let's do number 5 now. A little more difficult, but really the same type problem. It's not much different. I want to show you that the numbers we give you, they're finger number problems. We're not going to be looking at fractions or anything too difficult. All right. Okay, let's write this down. So what do you get? 3x minus 2. We're trying to divide that into 12x squared minus 17x plus 5. Again, I want to guarantee if we write problems, they're going to work very smoothly. Very smoothly. All right. So what am I looking at? I'm looking at 3x. My question is, what times 3x would match this 12x squared identically? And that would be 4x. I'll write that down for you. What's 4x times 3x? 12x squared. All right, let's keep going. What's 4x times minus 2? Minus 8x. Again, if this were me doing the problem, I would just simply subtract. And if you subtract that, what are you going to get? You can get minus 9x. If you see that, fine. If you don't see that, let's go through what you might have to do. You might have to write this down, that you're going to subtract it. Other students have to do this instead. But whatever works for you is what you are going to use. How do you know what works for you? By trying. You'll know what works for you. Some students have to change the signs and combine. And if you did that, 12x squared minus 12x squared is nothing. Minus 7 plus 8 is going to be minus 9. All right, minus 9x. What do I do now? Drop a place down. And again, I want to emphasize, we write problems going to work out really nicely with finger numbers. All right, so what times this? This is 3x, would match this minus 9x exactly. And I got to be honest with you, it's really not that bad. It's just simply minus 3. Let's write that down. That would give me minus 9x. And minus 3 times minus 2 is plus 6. Again, if this were me, I would just subtract. And I would say, oh, minus 1. Other students have to write this down instead. And if you did that, you'd have minus 9x minus a minus 9x, which is no x's, 5 minus 6, which is minus 1. Other students, and again, your mileage may vary, have to change the signs. So minus 9x, if I change the sign, it would become plus 9. And if I do if I change the sign of that plus 6, it would be minus 6. What would you get? You still get minus 1. All right. Now, by the way, some people say, I wonder what that minus 1 is, and if it can continue. You could. The minus 1 is actually a remainder. So I need to write the answer down. And so what is the answer? Well, I did my division, and my division turned out to be 4x minus 3. But I did not do the division completely. What is it going to be? Minus 1. I didn't divide that. And I didn't divide it by what? 3x minus 2. This is a fine looking answer, right? If you're doing WebAssign, that's the answer I would put down. Of course, I'm going to write a little differently. Do not feel obligated to do so. I can write it this way over here. Okay, let's look at the key and see what they have written down. And we'll talk about checking it later, by the way. I'm checking with the key. So I see 4x minus 3. And then I see the minus 1. I do see that here, by the way. I also see it here, right? I want to go through the check, by the way, and talk about how you check this in grade school. It's really the same thing. What you would do is this times this plus this. Let me write that down for you. So 3x minus 2, 4x minus 3, plus the remainder, which is minus 1. Let's go through the work. And what do you get? 12x squared minus 9x. Right? See what I'm doing? So 3x times 4x, 12x squared. 3x times minus 3 is minus 9x. Minus 2 times 4x minus 8x. Yeah, it's work to check. And then minus 2 times minus 3 is plus 6. I want to claim what I just did over here. I just did this part. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the second part, which is this thing over here, and let me add it on. Okay, let me see if I can do that. And what do you get? 12x squared minus 17x, and 6 minus 1 is plus 5. I want to see if it's true. 12x squared minus 17x plus 5. It works out beautifully. All right. Now, again, for the students who do not want to check their work by what I just did, you can look at the answer key and verify what you're doing is correct. Let's go to the next page. And next page looks real complicated. And by that, what do I mean? I'm looking at, they use letters now, Q and P, and they want me to do a long division. Well, I'm going to write it down before I do the long division. And I'll write down what the long division is. It's 27 x cubed plus 8 over 3x plus 2. I'm going to scoot this on the side, and I'm going to write down the long division now. And there's a point of writing this down. And you get 27x cubed plus 8. Some people say this is a much more difficult problem. It shouldn't be. None of the problems we give you should be difficult. They should be doable. But what I want to claim for a lot of students, what they have to do is that they've got to put down the missing places. I'll go through that with you. So what do you mean missing places? Well, if you looked at the 27x cubed, it's 27x cubed, but there are no squares. And there are no linear terms, but there is a constant in the end. Now, someone says, is that the same problem? It is, because if you read that, you would say, oh, 27x cubed plus 8. It's exactly the same. Now, someone says, why would you do that? You're making it worse for me. If it makes it worse for you, don't do that. Go back and do this division over here. All right. I'm going to say a lot of students with this division over here, they can't do it. They get confused. All right. But someone says, if you can't do something, you should still try to do it. I want to do this though. And I'm going to go through it very carefully. What do? What times this would match this identically? Well, that doesn't look bad to me. That would just be 9x squared. 9x squared. I want to point out what I just did. I put this in the column of x squareds. I like to do column arithmetic. Let's see, what's 9x squared times these two terms? Let's write down. That would be 27x cubed plus 18x squared. All right. Now, I'm going to say, I believe this is easy to subtract. You may not agree with that. I'll go to what we'd like you to think. So minus 18x squared, that's what I would just write down. But what some other students have to do, they have to write this down. They're going to subtract that. And if you did that, you're still going to get minus 18x squared. However, I have noticed a large number of students have to change the signs and combine. If you did that, you're still going to get minus 18x squared. What am I going to do now? Drop down the places. No x's and an 8. And I repeat, what times this is 3x, would match this identically. And it should be easy, by the way. It should be a finger number for you. That's going to be minus 6x. I'll write that down for you. Multiply it out, you would get minus 18x squared. I'm using the distributive property of multiplication, minus 12x. Now again, if I'm looking at that, I would just simply say, oh, subtract, it would be 12x. Other students do this. What would you have there? Minus 18x squared minus a minus 18x squared. Well, there's no x squareds. 0x minus a minus 12x would be plus 12x. Other students have to change the signs. You're still going to get 12x. What do I do now? Drop the place down, plus 8. I repeat this until I can't do it anymore. Let's take a look at it. What times this would match this identically? Well, plus 4. And what do you get there? 12x plus 8. Again, if I were doing subtraction, I would just say, oh, that's 0. Other students, write this down. 12x minus 12x is nothing, and 8 minus 8 is nothing. Other students, write this down. They just simply change the signs you combine. You still get 0. So I'm going to claim this is my answer. Could you check it? Yep. I'm going to go through the check for you. And the check would be 3x plus 2 times 9x squared minus 6x plus 4. Let's go through the check. And what do you get? Well, 3x times 9x squared is 27, x cubed. Then you get minus 18x squared, and you get 12x. What I do? I distribute the 3x across those 3 terms. Now you're going to do the 2. What do you get? Plus 18x squared. Let's see, minus 12x plus 8. A little bar goes down, combine like terms, 27x cubed, 18x squared disappears, the 12x disappears, plus 8. Is that what it's supposed to be? Sure is. Let me go back to the key though. I want to point out I'm looking for 9x squared minus 6x plus 4. That's what I'm looking for. So 9x squared minus 6x plus 4. We did good. Checks. All right, let's do number 7. 7 looks relatively simple. Someone says, is 7 the same problem? Sure, it does look like the same thing, but there's a difference. There's a subtle difference between the two. All right. But it's still kind of the same numbers involved, right? Now, granted, I'm going to say hopefully over time you start to see patterns, but maybe you never see a pattern. It's possible. All right. So it's number 7 now. Write this over here. And that's 2x minus 3. Is being divided into 8x cubed minus 27. I am going to recommend for most students to put down the missing places. And I'll go through that with you. So I'll put this over here. So 2x minus 3. And this would be 8x cubed. There are no squares. There are no linear terms, and there's a minus 27 in the end. What am I going to do over here? One step at a time. What times this, that's 2x, would give me this? Well, that'd be 4x squared, right? Again, you may be struggling. We hope the struggling ends soon for you, and they'll be able to do this very fluidly without doing too much work. We try to write problems that really go smoothly, that the number should be very simple. What does this give me? Well, if I just subtract it, I get 12x squared. If you were to do the parentheses subtract, you still get 12x squared. If you change the signs and combine, you still get 12x squared. Then I drop the places down. What am I going to do now? I'm going to look at this, which is 2x. I wonder what times 2x would give me 12x squared? Well, relatively simple. That's going to be plus 6x. Let's do our multiplication. What do you get? 12x squared minus 18x. Well, again, what are we doing? I say just subtract. What do you get? 18x. If you put the parentheses in and subtract them, you still get 18x. If you change the signs and combine, you're going to get 18x. Drop a place down. What am I doing now? What times this would match this identically? Plus 9. Let's write that down. 18x minus 27. You subtract, you get 0. So I'm going to claim this is the answer over here. Let's look at the key, though. I'm not going to check that by hand. 4x squared plus 6x plus 9, right? Wow. Again, 4x squared plus 6x plus 9. Let's do number 8. I'm going to pull it inside. And I want to go through it one step at a time. All right, so this is impossible. This is too big, too long of a problem. I'll never get to the end of it. We don't do that. We only give you problems you're capable of doing. I'll write this over here. So x, let's go back to black ink. X minus 3 x4 minus 3x cubed plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 10. And what am I going to do? It's really the same story over and over again. What times this would match this identically? And that would be x cubed. Now you notice I put things in the proper column, like cubes belong in the column of cubes, squares belong in the column of squares, so forth and so on. What do you get over here? Well, you would get x4 minus 3x cubed. My suggestion is whatever works for you. If changing the signs and combine works for you, putting parentheses down with a subtraction that works for you, or just simply subtracting, if that works for you, is fine. What would you get there? Nothing, which is good news. Then I drop all the places down. Let's put that down for you. Okay, let's keep going. What times this guy here, x, would match this identically? And I'm going to say 2x. Now you notice I put that in the column of x's. And what would you get over there? 2x squared minus 6x. Right, what I'm going to do now, subtract. But again, if you're struggling with the subtraction, you may have to change the signs and combine or put the parentheses down in subtraction symbol, whatever works for you. But no matter what you do, if you're doing it correctly, we should agree upon this. That would give you x. We get minus 10 now. So another question comes is, what times this, that's x, would match that? And that'd have to be plus 1. Let's write that down. What do you get? X minus 3. All right, kind of run out of room, push it up. And what do you over there? Well, you're supposed to subtract. If you did that, you would get minus 7. So I'm ready to write my answer down now. What's my answer going to be? X cubed plus 2x, we'll check with the key later, plus 1, plus, I didn't finish it. Now someone says, could it be finished? It can be finished. And if you study math further, it's really easy to finish it. But we're going to stop it with the remainder. That'll be minus 7 over x minus 3. And that's a fine answer. I want to point out that a lot of teachers don't think that's a fine looking answer. They write a little bit differently. I'll put that down for you. X cubed plus 2x plus 1 minus 7 over x minus 3. And by the way, there's other variances, but right now, let's just look at our case, see how we did. And I'm looking at it. And what do I see? X cubed, 2x plus 1 minus 7 over x minus 3. Worked out beautifully. All right. So let me talk about what you have to do now, which again, for a lot of students, they don't have to do anything. If you don't study, you're really pedaling without a chain. You must study what we just gave you. All right. Go back over the lecture, make sure you understand what's presented to you. Make sure the type of problems, the type of problems are going to give you. Simple division, monomial divisors, and probably problems a little more difficult where there'd be a binomial or maybe larger divisor. Typically, they'll be pretty easy to deal with. Right. So what do? We give you a chance. And I really mean this. We give you a chance to try. And what does that mean? That's homework, stuff you do on your own. At the end of the week, I'll publish these videos so you can look at them, all right? But you need to get busy on doing these problems over here. You know, first question, divide, second question, divide. Simple divisions, by the way. Keep moving through the problem set. Problems will be more difficult, not substantially so, but the bottom line is simple. And then long division. Make sure you can do that. Thank you.